is Real, and today we will be discussing perhaps the worst webcomic that I've had the misfortune of reading.
Cry, or better yet, beg.
Don't worry about the title, it's totally normal and totally doesn't foreshadow what's about to come. When I tell you I wanted to punch my screen, I'm out. He licks her tears, saying that her tears still tasted like heaven. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean? Soft and caring. Where? If he ended up as a eunuch, maybe I could excuse this scene. And he keeps fucking holding on. Maybe I should just go. Maybe I should just save myself the fucking door. This story makes me so mad that I don't know if I will be able to convey the magnitude of it, which pisses me off even more. This story really takes the boom shakalaka out of me. Perhaps you might understand why from the trigger warning that I am about to give. This story contains romanticized depictions of coercion, physical and emotional abuse, and sexual assault. Therefore, this video will discuss such topics. If you are uncomfortable with it, I suggest you sit this one out. Also, if you're considering reading this yourself, know that this video will contain all of the spoilers, but you really should do yourself a favor and just watch this video, because I have read it and half of my neurons have gone on strike. With that out of the way, let us get into the thick of it. Cry, or better yet beg, is a Korean novel that is currently being adapted into a webcomic. Now, the story is being labeled as a romance or a historical romance, but I honestly believe that it should be labeled as a psychological horror. The fact that the events that are happening in this comic are labeled as a romantic story, and that story is being put on Webtoon, where the main user base is young girls, it's very fucked up. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Due to the abhorrent story, people on the internet were understandably pretty outraged that this is on Webtoon, and the author decided to take a little break in March, but he's back at it again. We have now 30 episodes up on Webtoon, but through frankly reprehensible and illegal means I have obtained 10 more chapters, so we're gonna go through them, you know. I'm gonna walk you through it. We can be outraged together. Hold my hand. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So the story starts by introducing us to Leila, an orphan girl who is now staying at her aunt's house, but she's being bullied by her cousins and physically abused by her uncle. So this causes her aunt to drive her out on the coldest day of winter. Can it get any more fucking tragic than this? So she has to go from horrible relative to horrible relative. None of them want to take her in until she hears about one last relative that is sitting across the border. So she has to leave the country as a 12-year-old child. This last relative is Uncle Bill Remmer. He is the groundskeeper at the Duke Herhart's manor. So she goes there and meets him, and he's this very rough and gruff man. He does not want to take her in either, but is actually a decent human being, so he doesn't throw her out immediately. He's like, I'm just gonna take care of her for a bit. But very predictably, he gets very attached to her in the end, because she's a very bright and intelligent child. In fact, she steals the hearts of the entire staff. She's just such a cute girl. So Leila is portrayed as a very lovable, innocent little child who is just content with roaming around nature and watching birds. This is important to remember for later on. Leila's favorite thing is to watch birds, and birds in general. She just loves birds. She finds great comfort in them. They have always been there for her, which is why she loves them so much. I absolutely love the trope of a found family, so at this point in the story, I'm fucking attached to everybody. I love Leila. She's so relatable. I also love to be a little gremlin going around trees and stuff when I was young, so this was so amazing. But the Duke of the estate is due to return soon. Turns out that the Duke is 18, while Leila again is 12. There's a 6-year gap in between them, which will become relevant when they get in a relationship later on, because yes, the Duke is the love interest and he's coming back home. Fuck you. I hate the sight of your face. I hope you die. But he won't. In true male lead fashion, everybody is astounded of his beauty, of his poise, of his elegance. But as usual, Leila goes into the forest and discovers that some baby birds have hatched. And she sees the mother bird bring food to the babies, which brings her memories of her own mother who has abandoned her. But when she tries to get down from the tree, she sees the Duke. And he also sees her, and he points a fucking gun at her. This is when they first meet, basically. And the way that they first meet is him pointing a gun at her. I'm sure that's not foreshadowing anything. The relationship surely is not gonna be all like that. Now, it turns out that the Duke was there in order to hunt birds. She's very distraught by this, obviously, so now she keeps going into the woods to bury the birds that he kills. He also shot the mother bird that had the little chickadees that she had just seen, and they all died. He's surely not a psychopath. I can't wait for them two to get together. At this point, she also meets Kyle, a kind and lovely boy who is the same age as her. He is the son of the doctor who takes care of the Herharts. They meet and they get on really well because they have similar personalities and because Kyle doesn't murder birds for sport. We also find out that the Duke, whose name is Matthias, is engaged to Claudine, a lady of his social standing. Of course, this historical romance has classism in it. She sees Leila from a distance and she wants to play with her. Before she plays with the noble lady, she has to get washed and stuff. So she gets washed and groomed, and it feels very dehumanizing. The Duke's mother and Claudine's mother are also there. And they allow all of this. The Duke's mother apparently fucking owns Leila, so she's like, just go, go be a fucking plaything. Her standing in society as a lowborn is used against her so many more times in the future as well. She goes to play with Claudine, who doesn't really find anything in common with Leila. So she says, you really don't know a single thing. I only waited for you because I thought you'd be fun. But what a waste of time that was. You're no better than a puppy. At the end of the whole ordeal, Leila gets paid a little gold coin for her trouble. She feels awful, so she runs home, she trips, dropping her gold coin. But someone stomps on it. Who could it be but the awful bird killing psychopath? And Leila describes the encounter as the gaze that makes one feel the absolute worst. Duke Herhart made Leila realize just how insignificant she was here. From a glance, his red lips seemed to tilt at one corner. All she could think about were the words of Claudine Brandt, that she was no better than a puppy. At this point, we have a little time skip. Leila is 18 now. She has now become a very studious young lady. Also, apparently the Duke has not been around since he has followed in the family tradition and enlisted in the Royal Military Academy. But sadly, he's meant to return to the estate this summer. But Kyle has been there and he has become completely enraptured with Leila. They are so cute together, and why does there always have to be a completely age-appropriate, cute love interest in these fucking stories? And he's always just serving as a hurdle for the main couple. Kyle is completely in love with Leila, but he hasn't confessed to her yet because he's kind of a soft boy who is also valuing her friendship a lot. So he's a bit scared that their friendship is gonna not be the same afterwards. So he's kind of not doing anything about it. He's just a cutie patootie who can't even catch a chicken. They're just very cute. But lo and behold, the damn main love interest is coming back to town, and he sees them. So he gets out of his car and he's like, I'm gonna take a walk just because I want to, not just because I saw Leila. Now he's walking about and we're introduced to his supposed plight. Such is my life. A perfect life where even though you want for nothing and long for nothing, everything you could ever want is handed to you, to the point where sometimes it feels so straightforward that it becomes boring. In this life, I was the perfect child, the perfect student, and I became the perfect officer. And now I will marry the perfect woman and become the perfect father, to make the family line even stronger as the lord of the Herhart family. Just as my grandfather and father did before me, so will I. As he thinks of this terrible plight of the rich boy. Perhaps fate makes it so that Leila is riding in on her bike. Perhaps the solution to this existential problem that he's having. And noticing him, she of course crashes her bike. So far, you may be like, why are you so hard on this man? He hasn't actually done anything. He's just like looked at her with some degree of superiority, which, In this universe, maybe it is befitting of the higher class to do that. But right now, look at it. She dropped all her shit, okay? So as a normal duke, I guess, he does not help her, but he also stamps her on her fucking little pen because she's not looking at him. Leila Llewellyn. What the fuck, bro? I'm always so annoyed with these manhwa names. He doesn't wanna say anything to her. He just wants to torment her a bit. So he goes away. Why the fuck would you do that, you psychopath, you weirdo? He's such a weirdo. He walks a bit further, but then he's thinking, over time, the child grew up. She was no longer a girl, but had turned into a woman, into Leila Llewellyn. I don't understand this need for these virginal women to be the love interest. I don't understand why the author had to make them meet when they were he was 18 and she was 12, and now he has to realize that she's a woman. She has become a woman. First of all, she's 18. Like, when you turn 18, you don't magically become an adult. An 18-year-old is still very much immature and naive, which Leila will be portrayed as heavily going further. Even though she's an adult technically, I don't think that an 18-year-old can be in a relationship with someone that much older without there being a power imbalance. But the power imbalance is the fucking point of the age gap, right? This wouldn't be so bad if everyone else in this story wasn't referring to Leila from this point forward and throughout the fucking story as a child. Everyone is calling her a child. Everyone is treating her as a child, as a very naive human being. And considering what is going to happen to her, I'm getting ahead of myself again. At this point, the Duke and Claudine get formally engaged, even though they were pretty much set to be engaged their whole lives. So he's now a taken man. But at this point, he already seems to have a very dark infatuation with Leila. As he reaches for the hand of his fiancée, he remembers the bloodied hand of Leila as she was trying to take her little pen away from under his foot. He remembers that. Why? But Claudine and the Duke are walking around the greenhouse, and the greenhouse also has birds in it. And this interaction is very fucking creepy. Oh my god, let me talk about this interaction. So the Duke sees the birds and he's like, what bird is that? It's a canary, your grace. Canaries sing beautifully. This one is guarded as it has yet to experience much human contact. However, once you clip the tips of both wings, it cannot fly far enough to escape, and it will end up having a milder temper. Must you clip the wings? Birds that are able to fly freely can barely be tamed by people. If anything, this is also good for the birds, as it prevents them from flying into dangerous places and becoming lost or injured. The canary is a metaphor for Leila, and this will be made very, very obvious throughout the story. Leila will often be compared to a bird in a cage, and as we know by this point, this asshole enjoys hunting birds. The theme of the maiden being akin to a caged bird is very, very prevalent throughout the story. While I think that this premise could be done very well, and I do love the idea of a woman being put in a horrible, seemingly inescapable situation that she is able to overcome through her wits and guile, or through self-love and acceptance, and only become stronger for it. I do love that. I think it's really inspiring, and we love to see a newborn Contrifica Magnifica triumph over the patriarchy. Too bad the story is nothing like that. It's in fact quite the opposite of that. Leila will continue to get hit with trauma after trauma after trauma for nothing but the glorification of toxic relationships. Now, keeping all of that in mind, the fact that he asks for the canary to be taken to his room and calls it my canary is a bit creepy and dark, isn't it? Leila is getting some new glasses that she bought with her own money from selling raspberry jam that she had made. And she's rightly very proud of herself. But she meets Claudine and the Duke back at the estate, and Claudine invites her to have some tea with them. She's very, very uncomfortable in the presence of both of them, but especially in the presence of the Duke. She had, by mistake, seen him skinny dipping in the lake, and when he also noticed her, he swam towards her. psychopathic behavior. Those eyes, when I was younger, I foolishly thought that if I looked into the glassy blue eyes of the Duke, I would be able to hear a clear, crisp, ringing sound. That is the sound of emptiness, which is ringing because his head is fucking empty. But she is meant to meet Kyle in a bit, so she excuses herself and she goes to meet him. As the Duke and Claudine are driving back to the estate, though, he notices her with Kyle and he has a very normal reaction to it as someone who has nothing to do with Leila at all. Leila Llewellyn didn't touch her cup of tea at the cafe. She just sat up straight with her hands on her lap the whole time. All she did was leave quietly, with a look of pure discomfort and anxiety on her face as she fled. She left me and went to the boy because she wanted to go see him. She left me to meet the boy. So he's now already displaying some possessive behavior, even though he's no one to her. Ah, fucking ugly bitch. Why does he have to always appear? Fucking look at her. She's so fucking happy with him, man. If before you were like, surely the canary is not standing for Leila. You're reading too much into this. Look at it. Look at this shit. He looks at her, he looks at the canary. Fucking parallels. Parallels, people! The next chapter, Uncle Bill found out that Leila bought her own glasses and he was like, shit, I didn't even know you couldn't see. Why didn't you tell me? I gotta buy you something now. So he buys her kind of an ugly hat. Unknowingly, Kyle makes fun of it. It's a very lovely moment. They would be such a cute family if someone wasn't in the fucking picture to ruin it. He's come to the cabin to ask Uncle Bill to fetch him some roses from the garden, but he's not there right now, so Leila has to do it. That's what seems to be happening, but Leila muses that it's a little strange. Why would he come all this way out here just to ask for some roses? Well, maybe he was just passing through and popped in. She's like, I'm just overthinking it, but she has a gut feeling that something is wrong. So she brings him the flowers, but obviously, always trust your gut, ladies. He's like, shit, the colors are not nice. You gotta repick them. Unable to oppose him, she's like, yeah, okay. He seems satisfied with the flowers this time, but he's like, shit, you should arrange them. We should arrange them in a vase. Is that not also your job? And then of course he's watching her like a fucking creep, and he's like, when I look at her, I'm reminded of the canary in my bedroom. Yeah, we fucking get it. We fucking get that's why you got the fucking canary, okay? I got it. My golden bird struggled in my hand and stayed quiet after first being moved into my bedroom. Now she sits on my hand, rubs herself against me, and looks into my eyes while she sings beautiful tunes, as if she's telling me a sweet story. And you, Leila Llewellyn, how will you be? I wanna say this is so bad, but I know it gets so much worse. She's trying to leave again, but he's like, no, shit. Have some food. She tries denying and leaving again, and he's like, Leila, do you think I'm asking? Fucking punch my. What you're asking for is a knuckle sandwich, my dude. Bro is devoid of reason. So she has to stay and have lunch with him. If I refuse him again, it may lead to something worse. The best thing I can do is eat as quickly as possible and leave. But this fucking dumbass bitch intrudes into her personal space and takes her hat off. Because she's a lady and she should take off the hat when she's indoors. And she doesn't like this at all because that's a gift from Uncle Bill, and this is where she draws the line. This scene that's coming now, so shit, oh my god. I don't want to eat anymore. I really can't, so please give me back my hat. The food that he tried to be nice and give to her, even though she didn't fucking want it. What a fucking nice guy, is on the floor, so he's like, I took that personally. So he throws the fucking hat out. So she tries to grab it, but the hat has already fallen into the lake. Even though she cannot swim, she makes the very smart decision of going into the lake and almost drowns. Now the fucking psychopath has to go in and save her from a situation he created. Look at this fucking disgusting shot right here. Was there need for this imagery right now? I don't believe so. He even laughs at her, but he has the audacity to ask her to thank him. for saving her from a situation, again, he created. She points this out to him, but he's like, nah, you should have eaten the fucking sandwich and left, and none of this would have happened. It's actually your fault. No, of course, it wasn't you who forced her to eat food that she didn't want when she didn't want to be with you. Of course, it's her fault for not eating. Fucking shit. Brains. And very annoyingly, she does thank him because she's afraid that if she angers this bitch fuck, it will reflect poorly on Uncle Bill. But he cannot be fucking normal. Trying to demean her even further, he asks her to thank him again. Every single encounter they have makes me hate him even more and more. You may be asking at this point, how can this very unlikable shit for brains male lead make us like him at one point? Because this is, after all, a romance story. We are supposed to be rooting for them. Wait, aren't you rooting for them already? Because this is the fucking appeal of Matthias Herhart. He is going to be like this for the entirety of the novel. He's not gonna have any redemption arc whatsoever. He's not gonna realize that this behavior is only gonna serve to push Leila away from him. Leila leaves, but after she gets home, she realizes that she's forgotten her glasses at his place. But of course, her glasses couldn't be where she had left them because the Duke found them, and of course, instead of doing the normal, well-adjusted thing of sending someone to get them back to her, he just plays with them, tosses them around, and thinks of Leila. Unbeknownst to him, the child who was only supposed to be staying in Arvis for a short while had grown up inside his realm and turned into a woman. Why do they all like this shit? Why do all problematic fics have to resort to this motherfucking stupid trope? Leila, seeing as the glasses weren't where she left them, she muses that a crow must have taken them. But as time went on, he started becoming tired of their foolishness and the way he kept taking time out of his busy schedule to visit the guest house multiple days in a row. So it turns out he kept the fucking glasses to lure her back to him because he's sick in the membrane. So having exhausted most of the bird's nests, Leila finally goes to the guest house to ask him if he maybe took her glasses. But as she meets him, she's like, no, he's too fucking dignified. He would not bother with taking my glasses. Leila, you are missing the fact that he's a psychopath who hunts birds for sport. He's just making fun of her, gaslighting her for the fuck of it. So she, in the end, leaves. But as she's about to go to bed, she's thinking about it. What could she do? What could she do to retrieve the glasses? Are the glasses even there? Are they there or not? So she, in a sheer nightgown, goes to his room. She's canonically a smart character, I wanna tell you. And oh my god, the trope that I probably hate the most ever in anything, even if the story is good otherwise, is a villain, because this dude is a fucking villain, knowing everything that the protagonist is thinking, being able to anticipate exactly everything, even though he doesn't know her. At this point, they've talked like 3 times. How does he know what sort of person she is? How does he know that she will come to retrieve her glasses? Leila Llewellyn, the trap has been set. Now time to wait. How do you know? And this is gonna be very, 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 very prevalent throughout the story from here on out. No matter what tricks she tries to pull to get away from him, no matter what she is thinking, he will know it. There's no explanation other than he just knows her. He just knows who she is. Why? How? He hasn't had a proper conversation with her. But at this point, he's a bit at odds with himself because he's like, what am I trying to catch with this bait? As he's thinking that, she busts through the window again in a sheer nightgown. Look at that shit. What would possess you to go out into the night in this attire? Why couldn't you get dressed when you go to do crime? Why do you go out breaking and entering in your unmentionables? It doesn't make sense. As he watches her rummage through the drawers, he resolves that the thing that he's trying to catch with the bait is her. Further dehumanizing her. Leila, no longer a girl. I think I can now fully accept the reason why I laid this pathetic trap and lay in wait. He wakes up, she thinks that he's gonna throw the glasses away like she did with the cat. She gets in front of him. This is on my screen now. Her sheer shawl falls down like he was doing anything. Why would the author expose her like this in front of someone who's been nothing but the fucking psychopath to her. He intrudes into her personal space again under the guise of putting the glasses back on her and cups her cheek. Excuse you, sir, who the fuck are you? And thinks to himself, I think I know what this emotion is. I desire this woman. I desire Leila Llewellyn, who has grown into a beautiful woman again. Am I supposed to be like, oh my god, he likes her, he wants her so much? No, I'm just feeling sad and bad for Leila. So he cups her cheek and touches her lip. She's just like stunned by it. She doesn't do anything, but he keeps thinking about it. I also know the resolution of this emotion. I know that this desire is fleeting and that it will pass. Is there any need to leave a blemish on my life in order to fulfill it? Is Leila Llewellyn worth that much? Further dehumanizing her. Why does he need to dehumanize her with every fucking thought of her? So he lets her go. Leila goes home in a daze, washes her face. She seems very shaken by this encounter. The only thing that I remember clearly are the blue eyes that were as deep and still as the river that swallowed me up, the heat of his hands, the feeling of his fingers as they brushed my lips, the breath that was caught in my throat as I was being held there, and the pain and shame that washed over me soon after. So Leila doesn't really go out much after that, and the Duke's a bit upset that she ran away like that after he was touching her inappropriately without her consent. Like, because of his standing, she should of course be happy that he was touching her. Why would she go into fucking hiding? As always, the hunt was pleasant, but this feeling of dissatisfaction that lingers must be because of the bird that keeps desperately flying away from me. Again, comparing Leila to a fucking bird. Ugh. He kills a lot of birds and Leila comes out to bury them. I've buried birds every year, but I've never had to bury them in such numbers as I had to today. This doesn't bode well. Mama, a psychopath behind you. He's watching her and he's like, keep going, Leila Llewellyn. Carry on with your task. So again, let's think about the situation that we are in for a second. This is the male lead. I'm supposed to be swooning over him. I'm supposed to be rooting for him over Kyle. But he can't get girl because supposedly she's not of his social standing. So she would be just a blemish in his stature. So he murders dozens of birds to deal with his frustration and to lure her out to bury them. Not creepy. Not fucking creepy at all. She goes to leave. He's offended by this, so he goes to shoot another bird. What a shame, Leila. It looks like you have some unfinished work to do. She's like, why the fuck are you doing all of this, ho? He says, Leila, I want everything in my world to stay in place. Everything should be where it belongs, with no hiding or running away. Then we get some more insight into why Leila seems to be so interesting to Matthias. Matthias was always something to someone, and he was willing to fulfill the duties of the roles given to him. But what was he to the lowly orphan who lived in his woods? Matthias wasn't anything. There was no room in the Duke's life for anything superfluous to squeeze its way in. For the first time in his life, Matthias played no role. It was a strange feeling, not being anything for someone, but he did not mind how it felt. I don't know. I've never been in the mind of a psychopath, but it doesn't really seem like someone who's governed by logic would think that. It's not like he didn't meet anyone else who he wasn't anything towards, like the other servants. Did they not have family that he could torment if he was into tormenting people who didn't see him as anything? Like, it doesn't really make sense. If anything, the out-of-bounds emotions shown by that woman entertained him, like the thrill he felt the moment he shot down a bird in flight with a single gunshot. Above all, there were those tears. He liked to see Leila cry. No way! She was beautiful when she cried, so much so that he wanted to make her cry again. Are you swooning already, dear viewer? I don't know what it is, but whenever there's this man who's supposed to be this alpha character, who's so cool, yet his power is only shown through bullying those weaker than him, I cannot help but view him as the biggest shrimp-dicked loser edgelord. No matter what this author will say to me to make me consider him all poised and elegant and beautiful, it will only fuel my amusement at how much he isn't all that. I gotta make fun of him wherever possible now. Sorry. I'm sorry, but it is how it's gonna go. Now Claudine invites Leila to a party that she's throwing because I don't know exactly why. She finds that Leila doesn't really like the aristocracy. She's mostly enduring any encounter that she has with her, so she thinks that she should invite her to the party, probably to teach her a lesson. Claudine is a very interesting character for me because even though the story portrays her as an absolute villain and she oftentimes acts that way, I love her because she is the first one to recognize the nature of the shitty relationship that the main couple has. She's a classist rich bitch, but the fact that she will be so unrelenting in fucking with the Duke. Her outfit's always it also. Look at her. Now, if Leila shows up to tonight's party in a shabby dress, Claudine plans to offer up all the sympathy and pity she can muster, while Leila just stands there and takes it all. Crushing the pride of an irksome child can be enjoyable after all. But the Duke doesn't like this, because that pleasure must be mine and mine alone. I'm no good at sharing what is mine with others, so he already sees Leila as a thing that he owns. Fucking disgusting shit. In order to have Leila not be embarrassed at the party, Uncle Bill had the chef of the estate buy her some things for the party, but this Ago Duke intercepted them and changed them with shit that he bought. So now the things that she's gonna wear at the party are gonna be very fine and worth so much more money. And this scene right here has prompted some of the defenders of the story, because of course there are defenders of the story, to compare the Duke with Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. Are you insane? Come and say that shit to my face, bro. He only seems to be an asshole. He's actually doing nice things to her. Bitch, he almost caused her drowning. Let's not act like this is not a very shit situation that she's being put into by shitty people. But at least she gets to go to a party with Kyle, who's gonna be her date for tonight. And they look so cute together. He's completely in love with her. But too bad. The universe does not want it. Of course, he sees her at the party and he ogles at her and sees that she's wearing the things that he bought. Now, Claudine is a very smart girl. So seeing that Leila is wearing very fine things, she surmises that something must be amiss. Also, no matter how much she kind of tries to belittle Leila, Leila is as still as water. But when the Duke comes into the picture, she sees that Leila starts to fidget and blush. For sure, there's something going on between them. That's why I like her, bro. Even if she is made to be this awful person to save the narrative that she is someone trying to come in between the main couple, she seems to be kind of the voice of ration a lot of the times. She's very smart. She catches on whatever the Duke is doing. I feel like if they were to be the main couple, Claudine and the Duke, the story wouldn't be so annoying. She manages to be his match in wits and manipulation. At least she's definitely not as cruel as he is. Whatever she does to Leila and the Duke, she doesn't do it because she loves the Duke. She does it for herself and for her wounded ego that an orphan would be able to take something that should belong to her. She doesn't fuck with the Duke, which is kind of a slay. Whereas Leila is the perfect victim who always just stands there, and although the narrative is telling us that she's being defiant in her eyes and she never actually bows to him and she always tries to one up him somehow, the actions and the plot say differently. She is completely always living in terror of him. She's always wondering what he might do next. She can never predict what he's gonna do, whereas he is always able to predict what she's thinking. He is always able to be one step ahead of her and torment her in every way imaginable. So it's just a very pitiful story. But lo and behold, the Duke and Claudine are coming through on the balcony where she's at. Claudine is like, well, we should show a hint of passion, so you should kiss me. He grabs her face, but he thinks of Leila's face and looks at Leila while he kisses Claudine, which also seems to remind Leila of the time he was touching her lips. So she goes all red in the face. Like, I understand being embarrassed and stuff, but why does she have to run all the way out to the garden? Why can't she just stay inside with all the other guests? But that wouldn't have left the opportunity for the Duke to go and find her. I've seen through it, author. What now? So he does go there. She's just chilling. Her shoes are down. Her feet are up. So he steals her shoes. And he's like, cry, Leila. This prompts Leila to again ask, what the fuck is your problem, ho? Why do you not like me so much? Despising you makes me feel good. It amuses me to watch you cry. And I enjoy seeing you beg. Which is why the novel / comic is named that way. Kyle Edman, the one you are waiting for, he will not be coming. So Leila, cry. Or better yet, beg. And Leila cried. She cried prettily. That I gladly returned her shoes. By the time I had left the garden and reached the end of the path, Leila was still standing there with tears streaming down her face. They were tears caused by me and they belonged entirely to me.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
Brother, ew, brother. And then Leila leaves the party, telling one of the servants to tell Kyle that she is leaving the party, but to ensure that the message doesn't reach Kyle in time for him to go after Leila, the bitch fuck goes to the servants and asks them to search for a person who left already. So when the servants finally pass on the message to Kyle, Leila is already long gone. Because Kyle is a doctor's son and he was busy talking to more important people when she was getting tormented by that freak, Leila now doesn't really want to associate with him anymore. Leila kind of feels like he's too good for her. Coincidentally, Uncle Bill's brother also died, so he must go to the funeral, so he's gonna be away for a few days. I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen to Leila now that she's been separated by the two people who gave a shit about her well-being. That is supposed to make us realize how much he is obsessed with Leila and find it hot. The Duke is thinking, I hate feelings that are beyond my control. I want everything in this world to be under my control and in place. My feelings are no exception to this. But I wonder since when I started to get obsessed with the idea of seeing that woman every day. The desire to be perceived by her gaze. All of my senses are focused on that. When that uncontrollable heat starts building up deep inside my body, there were times when my will couldn't suppress those impulses and moments of weakness. Oh my god, he's so in love with her already. Every time I realize I'm at the mercy of those emotions, the displeasure within me grows. Desire. Ew. Can you be any more fucking creepy? As he thinks all those awful things, he makes his way to her cabin where she is all alone. Surely nothing bad is going to happen. Surely Leila will be all good. Speaking of Leila, she's about to fall off a tree and she starts screaming for Kyle. But of course, the one who finds her is not Kyle, but is the Flukduk. Even though she's very mad to see him at first, her desperation of not falling and breaking her fucking kneecaps takes over and she asks him for help. I fell from such a high place, but there was no pain. I just felt my head a little dizzy and my heart beating hard. See, this is the moment that I really can't stand. Like, of course, her heart could be beating hard because she just fell from a high place and there is adrenaline. But the way in which it is framed, with this image of their legs intertwined like that, and this being the last line of the episode, just makes it seem like this is coming from a romantic standpoint, that Leila doesn't even realize it. Because he's keeping her in place. She's unable to get up. She's like, no, I don't want this. He's like, wait a minute. I don't want to stay even 1 second in this state. No. And he keeps fucking holding on. She manages to get free though, after biting his ear. They now have a dispute over whether he's a gentleman or not. She's like, if you're a gentleman, how could you do such a thing? And then he forcefully kisses her. I tried to muster all my strength to push him away. But the more I did, the more fiercely he pressed on and trapped me under his embrace. Every time I faced his relentlessly chasing gaze, it felt like I was prey being torn apart alive by my predator. At least you're acknowledging that he's a fucking predator. Why is he doing this? I don't know. I can't understand at all. And that's exactly why I'm so afraid. The heat this man is pouring onto me. These unfamiliar and shameful sensations.
Please, I'm a star! Become mama because I can't hear you. Get the fuck out or I'm calling Valerie! To be judged all the time! You wish I was there!
Look at this disgusting. Why would you write such a fucking disgusting scene? This could be excused if he got his comeuppance. If he ended up as a eunuch, maybe I could excuse this scene. But knowing that the story has a happy ending for him, there is no excuse for this. In what world would I, as the reader, root for Leila to end up with this fucking predator? Look at the way she's portrayed like right here. This is the first time I'm seeing this because I read the webtoon up until chapter 24, I think, and then it was on hiatus because nobody liked the fucking story. But now they started illustrating it again. And I had read this in the novel, but seeing it, and he does all that and leaves. This is fucking disgusting. And she's just left there like that, bro. The moment I held Leila in my arms, I lost all sense of reason. What remained was a hunger to claim her, a burning desire to possess her, like a beast in heat. The fuck, leave him. But back to Leila. She's absolutely devastated. She's trying to wash herself, wash her mouth, wash her neck, whatever he touched. She's so fucking, oh my god. She has been having nightmares. She has been trying to forget everything by working a lot. But the harder I try to shake off the memories of that, the more the haunting images clung to me like an ever-present shadow. But Uncle Bill is gonna return today, so she's gotta shape up. When Uncle returns, everything will be fine. The fear of being alone in this empty house, the sadness from the time I must become an adult.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What
The cruel memory of the first kiss. All this chaos and uncertainty. If I just protect this life, everything will be okay. Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. In the meantime, Kyle has resolved to marrying Leila. Next scene, Claudine summons Leila to her to bring some flowers. Because of what was done to her, Leila feels guilty though, because she's meeting the fiancé of the guy who assaulted her. As I kept getting closer, my hands keep sweating and my lips are getting dry. I felt like a prisoner who was about to be judged. The way that sexual assault is being handled by the story and by the universe is so perplexing and puzzling to me. Because Leila says, no, what happened that day was an accident. He might have forgotten about it as well. I'm sure of it. The Duke has never visited the forest after what happened. So I have to stop with that. Leila's feelings are being treated as if they are an inconvenience. It's something juvenile to be thinking about, not the legitimate feelings of a victim of sexual assault. While going back, of course, she runs into the predator, and she muses that he has eyes that perfectly match the color of my deepest sadness. What a poetic way to put it, Leila. But Kyle is here, and he's proposing to Leila. Surely she will accept, and they will move far away from here, and she will have a happily ever after. Right? Although Leila is a bit hesitant at first. For about a year she keeps rejecting him, but Kyle keeps proposing to her. Uncle Bill comes to her and says, girlie, he's so good for you. Why are you so insecure? And she's like, of course I like him. I'm sure I could never find a friend as comfortable and warm to be with as him. That's why I don't want to cause him any trouble, because I appreciate him that much. She doesn't want to get married to him because of the difference in social standing that she realized they have. Uncle Bill, ever the rationalist, is like, girl, don't be stupid. If there is a man I'm sure will live to be a good husband and father, that man would be Kyle. There is some trouble though. Kyle's mom does not like Leila and wish for him to marry someone of a better stature than they have. So she's been bedridden ever since Kyle has started proposing. Kyle's father, the doctor, is very much in favor of it. He has also offered to pay Leila's tuition to an university. But lo and behold, the predator has learned about the marriage of the happy couple and is now resolved to destroy it. And this is basically the story that has been covered in the webtoon so far. But unluckily for everyone involved, I have skimmed through the novel as well, and I'm here to bring you the fucking sordid details of it all. Now, the Duke, dissatisfied with the thought of Leila ever being with another man and being happy, has the brother of Kyle's mother steal Leila's tuition money. So obviously they cannot be together anymore because the in-laws stole from her. So Kyle goes away to study, heartbroken, but still doesn't give up. He's like, oh, I'm gonna become a better version of myself, a better version who can stand up to all of this, and then I'm gonna come for you. But Leila doesn't really have any trust in this. She just views this as another inevitable tragedy of her life. She doesn't really believe that they can be together anymore. Of course, she's unaware that the one who broke them up is actually the Duke. I'm not gonna follow the events of the story very in detail because there's honestly not that much of value. There's this one time when he fucks with her by pretending to shoot her pet pigeon right in front of her. But Leila, who is already afflicted by Stockholm syndrome at this point, rationalizes that he must have done it to scare the bird away so that others could not shoot it. I'm sure he really cares about you. Nevertheless, he comes to her to ask for a reward. She says she is grateful, and he says he has no need for her gratitude, so he forcefully kisses her. And the scene is just as brutal as the scene of the first kiss. She tried to shake away from him, but too late did she realize that his other hand had come behind her head and grabbed a handful of her hair when she felt a sharp pain as he lightly yanked her head back. Leila gasped out in pain, and that was the opportunity Matthias took to slide his hot tongue inside her mouth. Ew! His tongue darted inside, exploring her mouth ravenously, before sensually entwining around hers. Leila couldn't help but moan at the sensation. In the background, she could still faintly hear Bill Remmer's grunts loudly as he split some more firewood. Leila's hands shifted, moving from the windowsill and up to Matthias's shoulders, trying to shove him away, but it only served to deepen their kiss instead. This is an instance where the author tries to paint this as a playful, forbidden romance. Uncle Bill is in the background, grunting as he splits firewood. They're doing something that they're not supposed to do. But it's just fucking abuse. She tries to get away from the kiss, but the language keeps implying that she's actually enjoying it. All she could think about then was how she'd much rather be in pain instead. However, Matthias was persistent in his efforts, his tongue resuming their previous ministrations, dancing expertly around her own tongue as he tasted every nook and cranny in her mouth. Ew, brother. The novel is so much fucking worse because the language that is being used to describe frankly vile acts that are happening is so sexual when there's nothing sexual happening here except for abuse, I guess. Their bellicose kiss continued, coupled by the loud grunts of Bill alongside the splitting firewood. Each time Matthias intertwined his tongue with hers and sucked on it, she gasped for breath, squeezing his shirt, letting out involuntary moans that seemed to have been scraped up from the depth of her throat with every brush of his tongue against hers. With every noise she made, Leila felt so ashamed of herself. She could feel herself grow dizzier with each passing moment, her body moving in response with whatever he was doing. How dare you add Uncle Bill to this shitty image? It's almost as if it's intentional. It's almost as if this is a predatory fetish of stealing an innocent person from right under the nose of their guardian. Uncle Bill is right there, and Leila is being assaulted, sexually assaulted. And this is a situation that is all too close to stuff that happens in real life. The fact that this is made to seem like a hot and heavy moment, and the fact that, spoiler alert, they end up together happily, is so disgusting. Even though the author keeps telling us that she is so terrified of him that she would do anything just to get away from that man and Arvis. She seems to be enjoying this. This is even more fucked up when knowing that at the end of the book, again spoiler alert, Leila realizes that she has loved Matthias all along. Right from the beginning she has been loving him. So right now she is canonically enjoying stuff and she loves him. Canonically, but she just doesn't realize it yet. Silly Leila, how can you not realize that you love your abuser? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. And it is so harmful to people who have actually gone through shit like this. Because it's an issue that victims of abuse always have to deal with. The fact that, oh, they must have done something to ask for it, or oh, they must have enjoyed it. They surely enjoyed it. Like this novel is saying, yeah, they were enjoying it. Yeah, like she was enjoying it, so it's fine. Now they're together. But let's keep going through the novel. It's as if the universe of the novel itself realizes that their story makes no fucking sense, so it must push them together somehow. Because remember all that firewood that Uncle Bill was chopping while his basically daughter was being assaulted by a maniac? Well, apparently it caused an electric generator that was by the greenhouse explode somehow. Because the wood was stacked too close. How? I don't know either. And it injured Norma, the Argo's grandma, so now he's being arrested? What should Leila do? She shall ask her abuser for help. He will make all of this better, of course. I am sure this conniving piece of shit will just be cute and drop all charges. Well, he actually will. If she sleeps with him, that is. They end up together. They will be together and she will be happy and she says she loves him. And when he proposes this to her, she's like, oh, but you're engaged to Claudine. Girl, I feel like we're a bit past that shit already. While I do appreciate you being a girl's girl, I feel like that should be the least of your worries when it comes to reasons of why you shouldn't sleep with a psychopath who has been tormenting the fuck out of you for years. Matthias knew on that day of Bill's accident that he finally found an undisputable leverage over Leila to clip her wings and have her stay by his side. Again, the novel makes it abundantly clear that Leila, just whatever she does, will never be a match for the cruelty of the Duke. He always knows how to manipulate her into doing whatever the fuck he wants, and he always knows exactly how she will react. After some time thinking about it, Leila agrees. She stood in front of him just as she did before as well, but the expression on her face was no longer filled with that glimmer of hope. No, instead there was only resignation and fear. At this point in the story, she still seems so innocent and naive, and the language that is used to describe her inner monologue at the revelation that she will have to go through with this is just so infantilizing, and it breaks my heart for her. She rationalizes this horrible event of her life by comparing it to a childhood game of climbing a tree. Leila thought to herself numbly that it would be just as though she had fallen from a very tall tree and got deep wounds from it. She would be unlucky and it would hurt for a long time, might even leave a scar, but eventually she will recover from it. Sooner or later. I'm out. Maybe I should just go. Maybe I should just save myself the fucking torment. I got to see it through, my boy. Sadly, got to see it through, my boy. Now stay with me, class. Coercion is not consent. The scene that follows is gonna be a rape. I'm not gonna describe the scene that follows very in depth because it's just fucking vile. But the language that the author uses to describe it is just horrible, again implying that Leila is somewhat enjoying the encounter. Phrases like reluctant pleasure, riding in pleasure. She felt warmth pull inside her. But then, the day after, she had half a wish that everything that happened last night was just a cruel nightmare. But the stiffness in her body proved it otherwise. Absent-mindedly, her eyes trailed down her body, watching the hickeys he'd left on her skin, the dried body fluids making her feel unkempt and sticky all over. Seeing them once more made their shame run deep inside her as tears welled up in the memory of being violated in the most humiliating way. This is just a vile rape fantasy. The thought of having a woman against her will, but her actually enjoying it and feeling shame because of it. Someone wrote all of this, and this is a situation that a lot, again, of actual SA survivors have to deal with, and it's being romanticized and wrapped into this beautiful world, into this very whimsical fantasy. She will end up with her rapist. Like, even if she doesn't realize it yet, at this point she's supposedly canonically in love with him. And what is the most infuriating aspect of the story is that every single time Matthias does something reprehensible and horrible, no fucking repercussions or comeuppance comes his way. This time there is even praise. After he rapes Leila for the first time, because there will be many fucking other instances, he drops all charges against Uncle Bill, causing everyone to praise him and thank him for being so merciful. At this point, they enter a sort of sick relationship, with her being forced to become his mistress while he continuously rapes her. And to add insult to injury, it turns out that Carl has been writing her love letters all this time. But the old trope of the relative hiding the letters to protect her takes place, so she hadn't seen them for all this time, and when she discovers them, she's already been violated by him, and she feels undeserving of the pure love that Kyle has for her. So she keeps not writing back to him. So Kyle is like, fuck, actually something must have happened. So he comes back to Arby's, only to see them, quote unquote, rotting on the table in the cabin that they grew up together in. Ew. Ew. He understands though that she must be unwilling. He has two brain cells to rub together. He wants to save her, so he asks her to run away with him. She is so afraid of what the Duke might do to Kyle though, that to deter him from getting close to her, she lies that she actually loves the Duke. Don't piss me off. Kyle is heartbroken, goes away. Leila fights with the Fluke Duke because look what you made me do. But then she initiates sex with him to erase the memory of herself saying that she loves the Duke. Don't piss me the fuck off. Why? What sort of mental gymnastics do you have to pull to write that shit? What happened with her being terrified and unwilling? Remember a while ago when we talked about the theme of the maiden being akin to a caged bird, and how I love the trope because usually the caged bird learns how to fly on their own and is free and is very liberating and inspiring and powerful, and how this is nothing like it. Although Leila acknowledges how awful she's feeling, her actions often make no fucking sense. They do not back the fact that she feels awful in the presence of the Duke. And this keeps going on throughout the story, and this is how the story ends. The caged bird stays caged and is thankful for it. And listen, I could maybe see the value in it as a cautionary tale, as a story speaking about how the victims of abuse don't always recognize it as abuse, how they may even trauma bond with their abuser. There's a lot of elements that actually point to this theory. Leila in the end realizes that she is in love with the Duke because she realizes that just like the birds were always there for her trauma, he was also always there for her trauma. But unlike the birds, the Duke is the cause of your fucking trauma, girl. And if the story acknowledged this, maybe it would be fine. It would be a horror, a psychological horror. But the story again is framed as one of romance, and Leila is being framed as a silly girl for not realizing it sooner. It is a deeply unsatisfying plot. The many times while she is supposedly terrified of him but treats him as a love interest, with the usual tropes of blushing when thinking about him, while not realizing that this means that she is in love with him, and even feeling hurt when he's acting like a couple with his fiancée Claudine. Even the thought of their wedding being grand and celebrated all over the empire left a bitter taste in her throat. Make it make sense. It's been a few months at this point. Claudine has known about their affair all along. She's not stupid. She has pieced everything together from the very beginning. So she tells this to Leila, and she also reveals to her that the Duke was the one who broke her and Kyle apart. This sparks the resolve in Leila to make the Duke suffer just as he made her suffer, and starts a plot to escape Arvis. But to ensure that the hurt is hurting, she must of course make him fall in love with her, actually. So she must act like a proper mistress and like she's actually in love with him. So she says that despite everything he's done to her, she actually loves him, even though she's been trying to deny herself. To further foreshadow the fact that she actually has always been in love with him, even throughout all of the abuse, we are told that when he had forcibly taken her first kiss from her, not even a week later, she heard that he'd gotten engaged with Claudine. At that time, she was already engaged to Kyle, but she couldn't deny the stinging in her chest at that knowledge. Before inevitably catching herself and realizing that the man who's been the bane of her existence is actually not husband material. She desperately wished that when she finally left him, he'd be wounded so deeply, no amount of time would ever heal it. Cry for me, she thought in her head, her wishes ringing loudly in the back of her mind. Just this time, I want to know you cried because of me. But even though it felt like his feet were being swept up beneath him, her last pretty smile to him made everything feel like he was floating instead. It was with her he could feel he had wings. She was his damnation, but she was also his salvation. There are actually defenders of this story, because of course there are. And they are saying, no. You got it all wrong, you dummy dum-dum. At this point in the plot, she is the one with all the power. He is already head over heels for her. He's bending over backwards to have her. Right now, he's the one who figuratively cries, or better yet, begs for her. And all I have to say to you is, are you will? I'm specifically speaking to the female defenders of this story, because if you're a man who enjoys this, move away. I cannot bother my eye muscles to move in your direction. You are a diamond dozen. Wow, a man with abuse fantasies. How fucking original. But ladies, what sort of hellish patriarchal upbringing did you have to excuse this story? What made you think that this sort of abuse could ever be equated to a show of love? Oh, she's actually the one who made him act like this. He was so prim and proper and elegant until she came in the picture, and his love for her made him act like this. She made him do that. She is the engineer of her own abuse actually. He is controlled by her need of her, by her even. First of all, that mentality only enforces victim blaming rhetoric. She was abused because she was so loved by him. All of a sudden, her trauma is an act of love that she was actually party to, that she even enjoyed. But when you look at the fucking facts, he killed birds so that she would come and pay attention to him. He hid and destroyed objects that were important to her so that she would come looking for them and pay attention to him. He emotionally tormented her. He raped her. He will cause her to run away from the only real home she's ever known. And spoiler alert, he will also inadvertently cause the death of Uncle Bill. So how the fuck is she the one in control? How? What can she do to him? Can she actually leave him? No. Can she make him act right? No. So Leila, as long as you do whatever the fuck he wants, and as long as you don't do anything to displease him, you are actually the one in control. Fucking lunacy. After Uncle Bill accidentally finds out about everything that's been happening to Leila, they finally manage to escape the estate while the Duke is away. And then the author is trying to make us feel so bad for the poor psychopath who lost his love. How he sees her in everything and everywhere. How he's fantasizing about the beautiful life they could have had together. He imagines her as a beautiful bride, even though he is still set to marry another woman who he is, by the way, currently on a trip with. And he also imagines that they could have had a little girl together who looked just like Leila. And this fact is very gross to me. Do not get me wrong, it is perfectly okay for a man to wish for a daughter. There is nothing wrong with that. But seeing as this man, specifically, is a raping maniac who has specifically enjoyed taking all of the firsts of his victim, who is much younger than him and is constantly infantilized by him and other characters of the plot, this felt very gross. Maybe it's just me. But none of this will come to pass now, because Leila just had to run away from her abuser. Silly Leila. And he cries because of it. Woohoo. We are meant to view Leila's escape as a small hurdle in their relationship. Leila canonically just doesn't realize that she loves him yet, so she escapes from him. I was actually so happy for her. If I would choose a point where to end the story, it would be here. They escaped and they're fine. But all of a sudden there is war. Matthias, being an officer known, is a part of the army and now has the opportunity to go looking for Leila, to apologize to her for everything that he's done to her, of course, right? And seek salvation and go on a redemption arc, of course, right? This is the logical course of action here. No, he wants to fucking kill her. Because of course, if he cannot have her, then she should die, so she cannot run away from him. I'm sure Leila cannot be catching any more strays, right? She surely has suffered enough. Nothing else could be happening to her. She's fucking pregnant, okay? She's pregnant. She's pregnant. In true Leila fashion, her nurturing character resolves to take care of this child and raise it as a single mother. She does not acknowledge the father at all, which I love for her. But then Uncle Bill gets killed in the war. And as she's wandering the streets lost, a strange officer is following her. And of course is the psychopath Matthias, who has found her at last. And the scene of her being followed and her just being very scared and running and not sure that she's being followed is so... Ugh. Why does this novel have to have every single form of abuse that women suffer at the hands of men? Is the author collecting them like Pokemon? Like, this is all very fucking tragic already. On that thought, the psychopath notices that Leila is pregnant from his rape and thinks she looked beautiful with her stomach all swollen like that. And he starts laughing from how happy he is for his birth to be returned to him. He then proceeds to kidnap her and bring her to his hotel room while all of his subordinates in the army are watching. Turns out Kyle is also around in this war as a medic, and he hears from the soldiers in camp that a pregnant woman was being manhandled and dragged away by that freak. He finds out that the name of the pregnant woman was Leila, and he goes to storm the room. In said room, Leila is completely terrified. Leila cowered in both fear and silence, curling in on herself in a poor attempt to hide from Matthias' view. Yet he kept looking at her in a funny way. Shivers racked through her body, her arms tightening up all the more around her swollen belly. No one else scared her more. Nothing else frightened her to the core as deeply as when Matthias won her heart. Again, we're supposed to root for them. But while she's going through all this terror, he is absolutely overjoyed to have her back. She looked simply adorable, all meek and frightened of him. Let me tell you, I am fucking spent. All of my energy has been sapped away by this. She asks him now, "What do you want with me, Ho?" He's like, "Oh, I'm here to kill you." The fuck? She of course starts crying, and he finally acknowledges her being pregnant, saying it's a pleasant surprise. Wanting no association with this motherfucker, she denies him being the father, saying she in the meantime got married and her husband is the father of the child. While he doesn't believe her, why not fucking torment her a bit more, for all time's sake? So he grabs her face, clicks his gun, and says he will kill the husband. Leila then is suffering a bit of a mental breakdown. If anyone is entitled to a mental breakdown, it will be you, girlie. She starts screaming and crying that the child is hers and hers alone, that there is no father, that it is hers and hers alone. It was just such a hard to read scene, which further built Leila up as this nurturing and very selfless character. But this fucking loser bitch man basically says, "Oh, is you the Virgin Mary? Then I must be your god." When I tell you I wanted to punch my screen, then I am made to read this fucking sentence. Despite how soft and caring he was towards her right now, his eyes still held a cold, malicious glint in them as he continued to keep his eyes on Leila. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean? Soft and caring? Where? He's tormenting her mentally. Are you insane? Why are you trying to gaslight me, saying that he's soft and caring? When threatening her with a gun, was that soft and caring? And she starts relaxing because this is a familiar situation. But thankfully, Kyle finally gets to the scene to inject some common sense into this fucking situation. Dr. Fierce is on call today. Kyle is pounding on the door, which causes Leila to snap her attention away from the psycho and call out to him, which makes the psycho go on a pathetic mental tirade about how he's so much more deserving of Leila's attention. Boring. Narcissism strikes again. But he's like, for his sake, never say his name in my presence ever again. You understand, kitten? It's giving Discord mode at this moment. Gentle hands cradled through her tangled locks, much like he was praising an obedient kid. Meanwhile, Kyle is still at the door creating a big commotion, getting everyone's attention, airing all of Major Verukadik's business. And in response, Major Verukadik points a gun at his head, saying that all of this ruckus is going to frighten his child, implying that Leila is pregnant with his child. And for some reason, in this moment, that makes Kyle lose all of the motivation to save Leila. As if to say, well, shit, I've loved, respected, and admired this woman my entire life. All I've ever wanted to do is protect her. But now that you have managed to make her pregnant, I'm afraid you won this time. I guess there's no one to save anymore. Treating a child as a flag a man may plant in a woman to assert ownership of her, as if she's not the same person deserving to be saved anymore. He gets dragged away and the Aga gets back inside the room. Hands then trail down to cup the beautiful stomach carrying their child, and Leila gasped and cringed, turning away from him. Ah, how he really loved her. He loved her so much, he was prepared to kill her to never lose her again. Leila is just so exhausted at this point. She falls asleep crying. Then, guess what he does next? He licks her tears, saying that her tears still tasted like heaven. Leila has done everything to get away from this man at this point. She has lost her uncle. She has lost pretty much everyone in her life. So she feels so much helplessness that she stops eating and gets sick to the point where she's close to dying. Of course, Matthias isn't gonna let this happen, so she gets Kyle and she gets another doctor to take care of her, but they can't really give her any sort of medicine because, well, she's pregnant. Matthias, of course, doesn't give a shit about the child. He is adamant that no matter what happens to the child, Leila should be the one that's saved. The doctors don't want to do that. Kyle actually cares about the wishes of Leila. He knows that she must love this child, so he wants to do anything to protect it for her. But Matthias goes to give the medicine to Leila himself, and as he tries to pour the medicine down her throat, Leila wakes up. And in a very, very gut-wrenching scene, she begs for him not to kill her baby and even admits to him being the father, even though before she was very, very adamant and made a point to always say that the child is only hers and he has nothing to do with it. She is also delirious from her fever. It's truly an awful scene. He does agree not to give her the medicine though, but he says that if she dies protecting the child, he would kill the child anyway. The child only ever served as an excuse to have Leila by his side without making him kill her. So it was important then, but not anymore. The child in his eyes now was nothing more than another parasite trying to take Leila away from him, and Matthias could not tolerate that kind of existence, even if it's his child doing it. She doesn't take the medicine, but she gets better through sheer force of will because she doesn't want her child to be killed by Matthias. But we're in the home stretch now. He actually lets her go. He's like, ah, shit, you know, do whatever the fuck you want. But then she finds herself in a mortal situation because of war. While she is almost being caught by the enemies, she wishes for Matthias to save her because he has always been there, just like the birds. And she actually loves him. She realizes in that moment that she's always loved him, and he comes and saves her, and then they live together happily ever after with their child that Matthias was very happy to kill if it meant he could keep on to Leila. And yeah, after all that, we get a happily ever after. So boys, all you need to do to get the girl is to abuse and fuck with her being until she understands that she loves you actually. What the fuck? When I read the ending, I I literally could not believe it. I want to wash my eyeballs. I want to not know of the existence of this book, and I wanted not to be into the world. And all of a sudden, at the end, Matthias also is not that cruel psychopath who only manipulates Leila and would do anything to make her do whatever the fuck he wants. He is an amazing father to their child, and he is a loving husband. And the writing is so different as well, to the point where I maybe think that it's a different author, perchance, because the vibes are gaslighting me. It's like this is not the same man. He actually cares about her and her needs and her wants. As if to say, well, you also didn't know you were in love with Matthias. You are also in love with Matthias now, just like Leila is. You also see him as this saint who now cannot do any bad, and he didn't rape Leila, and he didn't destroy her fucking life. Matthias is an utterly repulsive character. We gotta talk about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that the art of the webtoon is so pretty and frilly and elegant and whimsical, and it's used to frame such a horrible story, as if to hide all of the horribleness behind all of the frilly artwork. It is not okay. It is romanticizing rape and abuse. So at the end of this journey, all I have to say is that I hate this story with a fiery passion. Seeing a poor innocent woman have her life ruined by the guiles of a sadistic, horrible man, and in the end being with him because she had a lobotomy and fucking forgot all of the events that she suffered, just evokes such a fucking sadness in me. And the fact that this story, which is the story of so many women today, is being romanticized and glamorized just because he had a self-discovery at the end, and he discovered that he can love. Fuck out of here. Leila was a young woman who had ambitions. She was supposed to be a fine adult. This is what she promised to Uncle Bill. She was supposed to study, to be a teacher, and she was just destroyed by this fucking disgusting bitch. Instead, she was made into this frankly insane character who, even though she's terrified and tries to escape from this much trash bitch throughout the story, she also always seems to be available for him, and she also throughout being abused by him enjoys it. She rejects Kyle for something that his mother did, but then when she gets with Matthias, she doesn't give a fuck about the fact that his family also doesn't like her. She deserved so much better. She deserved someone who actually viewed her as a person and not as the object of their obsession. She deserved fucking Kyle. What happened to Kyle? I don't know, bro. I skipped. Last time I saw him, he was imprisoned by that bitch fuck, and he was refusing to feed them. So I was like, no, I don't know. I don't need to know. At least Claudine escaped to another country. Actually married someone else, the cousin of the Duke. He was entertaining. He was kind of a spoiled guy who always loved Claudine, and they end up together, but then he gets killed in the war. So Claudine is supposedly solo afterwards. So Claudine gets a bad ending, but I generally feel like she will be better off without this motherfucking Ago Duke. If this story ended with Matthias kind of getting his comeuppance in any way, it might have been a redeemable story. Not a good story by any means. I don't think anything could redeem all of that I have read, but at least it would have sent a message that if you are a shitty human being, you will receive your shitty ending. But no, he gets a happily ever after. Are you insane? That's all I got. That's all I got for you today. I'm so fucking exhausted. Don't ever read this piece of shit. It should not be on Webtoon, let me tell you. Why is this on Webtoon? I don't know. Please do like this video and please do subscribe. This was so, let me tell you, this was so out of character for me. I don't get that much free time, so I never really spent it by reading or consuming shitty media. Whenever I get a whiff of dissatisfaction when I'm watching or reading something, I drop it with a quickness, but I had to do this for you. So do please drop the like and the subscribe. Thank you very much. And also a comment. I do really enjoy reading the comments. I feel like it's gonna make all of this worth it. Also, we haven't seen each other for a while. Let me acknowledge that. I actually had surgery and I had to recover from it. I'm all good. Do not worry. Contrificas magnificas can never die. But yeah, it caused this little hiatus of mine. Please do not worry, I will not stop making YouTube videos. I thoroughly enjoy it. On that note, bye bye.